Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Doing It with Jason. I am Jason, and today we will be discussing and showing you how to whitewash wood. It's got a million different terms, such as pickling, weathering, you name it, but we're just going to call it whitewash to make it easy.
Doing it with Jason.
You're going to mix it. This is a water-based formula, which I like really well. It has a pretty good work time. It's easy to get and get at any big box store. The main thing is this is a pretty big table, so it's like 6 feet by 30 inches wide. And I've seen a lot of people and different techniques when you just, wipe it and go almost in smaller motions, and you don't want to do that. You want to keep it nice and long, unless that's the look you're going for, is really choppy and running into each other, all of your pieces, and you kind of see all the strokes too much. So what I like to do is kind of break it up. So I'm going to probably break up in almost 3 pieces going lengthwise, so it's very forgiving, and you will kind of be able to blend them into each one, and it'll almost all look like one uniform whitewash rather than a whole bunch of little squares you could see where you started and stopped. So we're just going to give this a whirl and watch, and let's do it. We're going to hide most of the wood, probably about 80%. Just a little bit of the brown's going to be coming through. It's going to look really nice and aged and just lovely. So we keep applying this, and see, the trick is you can stop and start, but then you just want to really go back over it before it dries to, just blend it all. So it's one long stroke. And then the edges, I'll usually come back and kind of just play around with them until I get them just how I like it, and I don't see any actual rag strokes or anything too unappealing, I guess. So for the edges, I'll do some now to show you. I kind of lightly start, and then I work it in. And that way becomes, a little less noticeable. And then when I get that to where I want, I kind of just keep going and then just lightly feather it in until all the blotchiness is gone and it looks like one effect coming all the way through. And you can do the same thing, go start from a little further out here and then just kind of work it back to the other side. So now if I would have just did one little section all the way across, it would have left me with a nice hard line. That's not something you want. So really going like this, I have a lot of time to work with it, because now I'm just going to start on my next section once I'm happy with how this one is. And I might apply a different coat, it depends. We're going for, this look was the customer sample. So it's going to be pretty close. I tended to finish a little bit beige to kind of give it an off-white color. So it actually looked like this before, then when you put the clear coat, it was tinted to just kind of give it that much of an older character to it. So, I'm going to continue going now. So now you just want to kind of stay away from this area until you're ready to blend it back to the other one. You don't want to drip it too much now. You want to be a little more careful. Just because you don't have to go over this 100 times. Which is fine too. It's all fun. And the more you go over it, the better I believe it all works together. You kind of just want to work the finish until you're completely happy with it. Which, actually a whitewash is probably one of the easier stain type finishes, I think, to apply. Just because there is no rules, except the ones that you give yourself. Whatever that means. So we're going to continue doing this. Now we're working it back to our first section, where we started. Don't want to go too far over it with a really wet rag or anything, because then you will see it darken up when you almost like putting another coat on it. So just be careful how far you go as you're working it. And then the harder you push sometimes, it'll take a little more off. You could also have another rag, a clean one, with you to kind of blend any spots that might have got too much and almost take it a little bit off. Which is the kind of the effect we're going for. We don't want it to be perfect, but we want it to be clean. So if that makes any sense, that's what we're doing. All right. And then we continue to our third section. Hopefully it will last. Sometimes you can break it into 4 if you have to. But I think we'll be able to get this one all at once. And you could also water this down, I've done before too, if you want a thinner covering. that works really well. As long as it's a water-based product, usually water will cut it. For me, it has. Some things require other things, but this always works really well with just a nice water cut. And this is sometimes the actual technique I use for staining wood as well. It's all about the longer strokes, hiding where you meet and start and stop is the key, pretty much for all finishing. You want it to all be very, just evened out and that sort of thing. Oops. All right, guys, I'm back. We let the project dry for about 10 minutes or so. I want to apply another layer onto it of the wash. I need to deepen it up a little bit more. So the main thing is treat each coat, if you are going to do multiple layers of anything, as if it's going to be your final. Just like, because if I would have just rushed the first one, I would have left blotches, which will show up in your second, third, however many coats. Don't go crazy, because you will have to knock it back down a little bit to ready spots. So we're going to apply our second coat on here. And the same fashion, just going to kind of work in small strips. And just keeping it going. So now after I do apply this one, this will most likely, definitely, yes, be my last one. I'm going to come back with, I don't know, somewhere around 220 sandpaper, maybe by hand, maybe 180, see how it works, and just lightly go over the whole surface with it, with the grain, just kind of breaking down any of the finish that might have gotten a little high. You want it all to be the same layer. And then also, it'll help adhere your, whatever product you're using to seal it, whatever clear coat or whatnot, depending on the manufacturer's recommendations for that. So always check into what they recommend. But generally I've noticed that as long as I break it down a little bit, it adheres perfectly well. Even though I'm going to be using a post-catalyzed lacquer product, which is not water-based, but as long as I let this dry completely and I do my light sanding, I've been doing it for years and I've never had any issues, never a failing finish. It adheres perfectly. So the key is letting a water-based stain dry completely before you attempt to put a finish on it that's not water-based especially. And occasionally I'll continue balling it up, refixing it. And not just balling it up. I've noticed that, if you kind of just have the rag just be whatever, what you're going to do is I kind of roll the rag from behind or into itself and then making like, a really weird pie or something. And then it gives you a nice little pad. And that way you don't have the rag sliding around, streaking it up the whole time. You have it in a confined space. I've never been a fan of the staining pads, because they're so square. They just seem to not fit right in your hand, just feel weird for me, leaving lines on the corners depending on the pressure. So I've always gotten accustomed to just the rag. And occasionally a paintbrush, but I don't know, the rag seems to give you a more nicer finish, I believe, personally. Alright, one more little section, and this thing will be ready to finish after it dries for a few days. Alright, well that looks good. We'll double check it, but yeah, I think that's about it. So like I said before, when this is all dry, give it about 24 hours or so. Maybe come back with by hand, definitely not a sander. Just lightly go with the grain just to kind of smooth it out with about 120, 150, not too heavy, so maybe 150, 180. Go with the grain, blow it off, ready for finish. Alright guys, so we applied our finish here. We're going to let this dry for about 24 hours, and then we're going to come back with 180 grit sandpaper by hand and lightly go with the grain to knock off any heavy edges or any spots that we think are gotten a little too white or whitewashed or pickled or weathered. Bringing some of that natural grain coming through. We definitely want to keep that to give it the nice look. So after that, we're going to be ready to spray it. We're going to spray it with post-catalyzed lacquer. You can finish it however you would like to. Just you want to seal it. You don't want to leave it just like this, even though it sometimes says it was self-seal. It's not true. It won't hold up to anything. It'll stain instantly as soon as you spill anything on it. So go ahead and put a nice coat on it, whatever you're used to, whatever you feel comfortable with. And then we should have a picture up at our website. It should be up here on the top, one of these places. And click on that if you want to see a final photo of what it all looks like together, all finished up. So thanks for watching. Like us, subscribe to us. We appreciate it. See you later.